Good day again. We are now going to look at Model Test 1 on 28 March. Question 1, D and E. Now firstly, let's start off with the required part. The required part said, assume that at the inception of the lease, that there's a NTC expected an unguaranteed residual value. Now this will only affect their interest rate because NTC as the lessor expects this unguaranteed residual value. So they will now go and recalculate the implicit interest, and that is what we are going to do now. So we take into account the same present value as we had before, the same N, 6 years. The installment stays the same. Remember, the contract between the lessor and the lessee did not change. That still states the original amount of 1,495,000. It still states the original installments and the 6 years. The lessor now wants to bring into account the unguaranteed residual value, and that's why we have to put that as a future value in this calculation. Once we've done that, we can now bring that in there as a future value, and now we can go and calculate the new implicit interest rate. And once we've done that, we've got our new implicit interest rate as 12.6%. Now we can go and answer part E. And part E says, for the scenario in D above, present only the maturity analysis of net investment in finance leases note. So only that part of that previous note that we had to do in C, only the maturity analysis part is now required. So let's have a look at what should be done there. Now there you've got the notes in front of you. And firstly, it says maturity analysis. So what do? We look at what will the future installments be. Those 5 installments that will still have to be received in the future, next year, the year after, etc., for the next 5 years. They all add up to 1,777,000. In this case, the same as in part C. It's a big if we had a guaranteed residual value or residual value guarantee, then we would have added it to the last or final installment. But as I said, in this case, there is no residual value guarantee, therefore nothing there. But we do have an unguaranteed residual value. Now, because that is actually part of the finance income, we now have to go and split that out. So when we do this calculation here, we now have to take that into account. And the first thing that we're going to have a look at is the discounted unguaranteed residual value. Basically what they're telling us here is the residual value will be 119,000 5 years from now. Remember, 5, not 6 anymore. There's only 5 remaining. So 5 years from now, the residual value, the unguaranteed residual value will be 119,540. We have to present value that for 5 years. So that's why we do this calculation here, that one there. We say, firstly, the 119, that's our future value for this one. There's only 5 years remaining, and we use the 12.61% that we've calculated in the previous calculation part D, and that will give us a present value now in the current, at the end of the current year, of 66,013. Now that is our present value of the unguaranteed residual value, the 66,000. If you do the calculation this way, the following calculation is then easy that you have to calculate. What is the balance at the year end? The capital balance at the year end. We know it is that amount there. So we want to calculate that amount. Now we can either calculate it by doing the amortization table or by doing this calculation on your calculator. You can go and have a look at the calculation, because what we did there was we gave the present value, we gave N as 6, and then the future value, and then eventually you said 1 input 1 shift amort. That is, it's this calculation here. Let me show it to you again. That one there. That means what is the balance and the interest and the capital paid after 1 year. That's why we say 1 input 1. So it will effectively give me this information that I have there. So you can either draw up the table and then you have that information, or you can use your financial calculator and you have that information. And that is what you have to calculate there. Once you've calculated this amount, once you've calculated that amount there, you can now slot it in there. And that will give you the 2 marks that we've just drawn over. That is now your balance that you have there. And now you can go and calculate this 515, that one there. So to calculate that amount there, you now take what you've calculated here, the 1777, you've calculated that, and you also calculated the 66. That will now give you that answer there. Now you've done the whole calculation. And what this means is that the unearned finance charges that you have here, that portion there, the unearned finance charges, that is now split between the present value of the unguaranteed residual value as well as then the unearned finance charges, which gives you those calculations there. And that was what we required in the second part. Oops. Right. So let's clear all there. There was an alternative method of calculating this. I would just suggest that you go through that yourselves. I'm not going to discuss that in detail now. And all you have to do is either you again drew up the table, the amortization table, or you used the financial calculator to be able to calculate for the full remaining period. Why do I say full remaining period? The first year is gone. So from period 2 to period 6, you calculate what is the remaining interest. And that is the full amount of 568. But remember, included in that full amount is the interest that relates to the unguaranteed residual value, which is that portion there, which you've calculated there. So that is why we have all these different calculations. Go and have a look at that. If there's any queries, rather email me. It will take too long to go into all that detail. Right, good luck with your next test.